Welcome, guys. This is a Second Opinion Sports Medicine Podcast. I'm Dr. Dhokal.
I'm Dr. Glass.
And we're back here in studio in sunny San Diego today. Happy October, my friend.
Thank you. Yeah, that's right. Didn't even think about that.
Doesn't feel like October, does it?
Not at all.
Yeah. I know. It's weird in Southern California when it's like that, but I like the start of October, start of Q4, and right in the midst of football season, basically a quarter of the season done with football season, and the weather's still nice. The games are exciting. I don't want to start the podcast off on a sour note, but the Raiders did play the Chargers, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think you called me right away after. And
I did, but that was a business call, though. That was.
I was like, should I even answer this? I
Right.
know what this is all about, and then no.
You know, this is how weird fantasy is. I lost my fantasy team, and so like the Chargers won, and I was hyped, but I wasn't even thinking I'm going to call Dustin and like rub it in or anything. Not that I would do that anyways, but yeah, fortuitous timing. You're like, hey man, this is too soon.
Yeah.
Why are you calling me?
Yeah. I think I picked up and I congratulated you right away. So
You did, actually.
I tried to take the high road.
You're always a good sport,
Yeah.
Dustin. Really. It was an exciting game, that one was. The Chargers almost found a way to lose it yet again.
Yeah.
But we keep doing that.
I don't understand. You guys are way better of a team than that,
We just like to make it exciting.
I guess.
You know, it was strange to see have happen again. You know, there was a controversial-ish call going for it on fourth down in our own territory. You guys had a backup quarterback, which I'd like to talk about. So Jimmy Garoppolo, their starting quarterback, had a concussion, and I guess he wasn't able to go. Did you hear anything about that?
I didn't, and when I turned that on and saw the backup, and I was trying to figure out some information on that, and at the time I didn't get any info, but then later on, after the game, they were talking about what had happened.
Yeah.
So.
That concussion protocol is interesting, right? Mm-hmm. Because you can feel okay, like as an athlete, you can be like, yo, I feel all right. But then the day of the game, there's a whole protocol that they go through. Mm-hmm. You being on the other side of it, having been more on a formal side, can you walk me through what that's like on a game day? I know we've talked about concussions and stuff before, but since it came up with this game, I thought the first thing I thought of was, man, I'm sure Jimmy woke up that day or the night before and was like, I'm going to play tomorrow, prepared like he was going to, mm-hmm. and then he didn't get cleared. So that was probably frustrating for him as an athlete, but what is that process like?
Yeah, I'm sure that because it's the game day starts the night before, starts the week before, right?
Right.
So, and these guys are professional athletes making money, what they do, and so they have a game plan not only that coaches give, but that is going through their own head. And so I'm sure he knew going into it that there's that possibility, because I don't think you should.
That he wasn't going to get cleared.
Yeah, exactly. So, but in all hopes is that, hey, I hope I show up, hope everybody's on the same boat, page, and that I'll be cleared and I'll be ready to go because I'm feeling fine. Both of us aren't privy to what is actually going on in their case, but typically that's what's going on. They're there to play. They've had multiple hits, multiple headaches, multiple concussions over their careers. So having just a headache or having just a little tight muscles is nothing new to them going into a game. So that's what makes it difficult, right? And it's going to be up to the docs and all the concussion specialists that are there, hired by NFL to make that decision for them, because they'll play through. They've played through pain and headaches and the concussion type stuff before, so it makes it very difficult to determine for the athlete how bad it is, and it's going to be up to the medical staff to help make that decision. And right now, the medical staff and everybody involved is on, high alert on making the right decision.
Especially
right?
after last year.
After last year, it got those protocols got how would you say, just under a microscope even more, right? Mm-hmm. So nobody magnified. Thank you. Yeah. So it's a very tough decision to make that final call either way. I mean, not either way, because if you're like, hey, you're good to go.
You're good to go. They're happy.
Good. Everybody's happy, but
there's pressure in that though too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're sitting kind of on the fence there and you're like, should he, shouldn't he, should he, shouldn't he? I mean, I can imagine as a team physician, and I think that's why there's not just one person who has the green light. There's multiple people. Mm-hmm. So there's that. But I could see that being really hard to be objective, especially if your friend or the client, your player, your athlete is pushing you to play.
Yeah.
And then you think, man, we're already here at the stadium. I can hear the people in the crowd.
Yeah.
Everyone wants the starter to go, and I got to be the person to say no.
Yep.
I could see that being, a little bit stressful, but that's your job.
That's your job.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's your job. That's what you're getting paid to do, to make those decisions, and everybody's going to have to be okay with it at the end of the day. But I can tell you and this, being a chiropractor and adjusting on game days, that sometimes is scary too, when you see one of your players that you adjusted go down with something that looks maybe spinal related. You know? So document everything, right? Yeah. So it's so important to document, cover your butt, because if something does go wrong, they're going to start going through it with a fine-tooth comb. What did you do before? What were the steps that led into the game? Was there anything at fault? And so if you're part of that team, the sports medicine team, you better cover your own butt and do everything right. Not that you would do anything wrong, but you have to take extra measures to make sure you've covered your own butt with documentation, so that there's no question that you did the right thing.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, I think that's an important point to make, because it's rare that an injury occurs, but if it does, they're going to go through all that and try to find, was something done incorrectly? Did we do too much of this? Was there already a problem at C5 and now there's a stinger? Like all these things. So that's interesting, because on the personal side of things, obviously documentation on all the work you're doing, the adjusting, the body work, etc. But still the same feeling if somebody you treat gets hurt. You're like, oh man, that's my guy right there. Now he's down. And the first thing I think of is, hopefully it's not serious, or definitely not season ending. You don't want those critical injuries. And then if it's not, then right away it's like, okay, what do I have to start doing, right? Like, he's going to be out for the rest of the game. He's going to be at home. He's going to get all the treatment from the medical staff, from the team, and all that. Now, what in addition can I do? And with some of the teams that I've worked with, you get a little bit familiar with maybe their protocol with things. And so if they don't have something, then I try to bring that to the table in personal time. And then I think the other thing is, you're only at the facility so much. So if you can get that extra time outside the facility, then I think that's where we as concierge docs can bring a little extra care. They're getting all the care, A-grade care at the facility, but you're only there maybe 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So if I'm at a player's house from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. working, that's an extra few hours that matters in a game week.
Right. Yeah, and over the 20 years that we've been doing this, I've seen a big kind of a transition on roles of what we've done. 20 plus years ago, being an ART provider, mainly it was chiropractors doing that.
Sure.
Mainly, soft tissue in conjunction with spinal care.
Yeah.
So early on, it was something that these teams sought after as an ART doc plus a chiro, right? So that was my main role, an ART plus chiro.
Yeah.
Then, as more and more of the athletic trainers and massage therapists were getting certified in soft tissue for being in-house, part of the sports medicine team at the games, at the facility, my role changed more to strictly chiropractic, which is a little different than your role, doing the concierge before or after games too. So that was kind of interesting.
Did you like that better?
So I was just going to say, being such a soft tissue guy, I have always loved that part of it, because both of us, I think, our thought process is working on the muscles. Knowing what chiropractic does and the benefit of it, we also, from a sports medicine side, know how important taking care of those muscles are. The muscles move the bones, right?
Absolutely.
So we can go in and adjust, but if we're not taking care of the soft tissue around it, it's going to be temporary, more temporary. So I've always felt that the soft tissue part's a huge part of the treatment. Yeah. So it changed as the years have gone, where, hey, we want you just doing the chiropractic because you're only here so often. just come in, make the adjustments, what you're needed. And what has happened is I get brought in as just the chiropractor. And then once they know I also do soft tissue, and they get comfortable with me, then it morphs into, okay, hey, do you mind working on their neck a little, work on their costal-transverse area with some soft tissue as well.
Got you.
To make it hold, but
That's so
my
interesting.
point is with game days, especially football, hockey, some of these contact things, if you're the only one messing with the spine and nervous system out of the whole sports medicine,
Sure.
and somebody goes down with a concussion, stinger, strain, or worse in their neck or spine,
it's on you.
Yeah, it's coming right
People
back.
are going to be asking you questions.
Yeah,
what did you do? What did you adjust? What did you feel?
There's a little more butt puckering that goes on when something happens and you start going, okay, did I cover my butt? Did I, do everything I did right and follow
But that's what makes you a
protocol?
good doctor, though,
Well,
is that you're thinking of all those things prior to and not post fact.
Right.
Right? You're like, I want to make sure that everything I'm doing is going to bring value or benefit and nothing back. And I say that to patients often, like, hey, we could take this a couple ways, but my preference, if it's okay with you, is to go the way where I know we're making baby steps of progress and no retraction.
Right.
We don't want to go 3 steps forward and 1 step back, even, because that 1 step back sometimes can be inflammation, pain, a setup for another injury.
Yep.
So I think that's one of the things that makes you a good doc is thinking of that, and if something does happen, I would also think, man, this person is competing at a high level, whether it's football or dancing or hoops. And sometimes things happen. It's not always going to reflect back onto the adjustment. The adjustment is what keeps you neutral and balanced and feeling good so you can perform. But I see what you're saying, though.
Yeah.
You're the last person to adjust somebody and somebody gets a concussion. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk to Dustin and see what he felt, know?
Yeah. What was their prior? Well, and I've always taken the approach too. We get hired by these teams. Okay, somebody's signing off. Somebody trusted in us to say, "Hey, you're our guy."
Yeah.
I want to do right by them as well. I
Sure.
don't want to. It's just not me. Like, I'm wearing their logo, their colors.
Yeah.
I want, if I've never met the
It's a privilege.
Yeah, if I've never met the upper management, if my name ever gets brought up, I want it to be in a good light, right? Meaning that it's a pride thing, right? I want to make sure I'm doing right by them as well. So I want to carry myself. I want to do everything I can to make their organization look good as well.
Sure.
So I've always gotten the satellite license, right? Most sports docs might not even get the satellite license, but that way, if anybody ever said, well, that doc didn't do it the right way, not on my watch. Like every single stadium I've worked at had a satellite certificate.
Good for you, dude, because that's
the state.
Extra work. It's the correct way of doing it.
Yeah.
But it's also a step that could be skipped or forgotten about.
Yeah. So, and a lot of the athletic trainers that I worked with, like, oh, we've never done that. You don't need it. Don't worry about it. I said, I understand that. But if God forbid anything ever happens and the crazy chiro that was in here gets blamed for anything, and they start looking down the road and they're looking for things to,
it's a weak link.
On. And if I did not get that, which the trainer had no idea that there's even this certificate, a satellite license that should be gotten. If they had no information on that yet, and then it gets brought up, then management starts going, well, why didn't he have that? Why didn't you do that? Now, not only am I in trouble as the chiro, the athletic trainer who put his name on the line for me,
the head trainer,
is in trouble, or the medical doctor that brought me in. Now he's screwed because he vouched for me.
They didn't do due diligence.
They vouched for me, and it's not their fault. They didn't know any of this.
Sure.
So I never wanted it to have a trickle down. My actions or lack of actions to affect anybody else that had any kind of influence on bringing me in, right?
Yeah.
So that's what that separates us, right? So let's do the extra. So again, then once teams start hearing about that, man, I don't have to worry about this guy. I know he's done everything right by our organization. So no matter what happens, good or bad, it's a class act.
It's a habit.
Yeah.
If you're skipping a step there, then it's not a far jump to think that, well, maybe you're skipping another step,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and if you don't want to skip any steps in how you treat your clients,
Mm-hmm.
then you also don't want to skip any steps with all the other things that are important. And it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to run your own business,
Mm-hmm.
dude. It's not easy to keep all the documentation, to keep all your paperwork, to do your continuing education, to make all your travel plans. Like last I checked, you don't have a personal assistant, you know?
Right.
And it's not easy doing all
Yeah.
those things, but that's why I say it's not easy being great, you
Yeah.
know? It's like I remind myself of that when things are hard. It's like, well, okay, I'm good, you know, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
but I also think a lot of other people are good. And I also hang around a lot of people that are great.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes some of the best in what they do. It doesn't even have to be athletics, right? And then you see how they operate,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, shoot, I got to step my game up.
Right.
Like, you really got to cover all the bases to be great. You can't be great at 8 out of 10.
Right.
8 out of 10 is like slightly above average.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, man, it's not easy, and, you know, hats off to you to doing all those small things.
Well, you just said it's not easy. Two things. I mean, my dad has taught and continues to teach me a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
But two of the main things that stuck with me from early on is, one, always answer the bell.
Right.
So I'm going to add 3. That was an extra
Sure.
one. But always answer the bell. It doesn't matter. There's a story behind that, but I just thought of that. My daughters had homecoming this weekend, right?
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, they had homecoming this weekend, and
You clean up nicely.
yeah, you saw that. Yeah, I had the privilege of
Yeah,
walking
man, that's dope.
my senior daughter Allie down.
It's a beautiful
down
thing.
A little, on the football field, and she was a part of the homecoming court, so that was really cool. But the thing is, and this is just a side note. My younger daughter, who's a freshman, had her first homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so but she had to be. Well, we all had to be up and out and at the field in Murrieta,
Gotcha.
an hour and 15 minutes away at 7:45 the next morning,
Got it.
on the field ready to play. So the whole thing was, her and half her team had homecoming that night.
Yeah.
Our message to my daughter was, I don't care if you don't go to bed at all,
Yeah.
but you answer the bell the next day.
Sure.
If you want to continue to do this, so you always answer the bell. And that's one
Yeah.
of the things my dad always taught me. But the other two things to our point, what we're talking about.
Yeah.
One, do what's right, not what's easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we're talking about the satellite license and doing all the due diligence, it's just what's right. You
Yeah.
know, it's not easy. Like you
Sure.
just said, it's not easy to go those extra things, but it's the right thing to do, right?
Right.
And then the other one is live by the golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated,
Yeah.
right? So same thing goes.
You can
for-
simplify it, and that's it's a pretty great way to look at things, you know? If you,
it simple.
keep it simple,
Yeah.
you know?
It's not. Yeah. If you're treating others the way you would want to be treated and treat people right, everything else falls into place,
Yeah.
right? You can always go back to that and do what's right, not what's easy. Those two things can get you through almost every decision you're having to try to make. Just ask yourself, do what's right, not what's easy. Okay, well, that's the right thing to do. I'm going to pick that.
So let me ask you, obviously the Raiders medical staff made the right decision based on their observations and exams and tests, and so Jimmy Garoppolo didn't play. As a fan, taking yourself out of the, doctor arena, what was your thought? So you click on the game, or you're hearing about it, and you're like, Jimmy's not playing. What was your first thought? Like, oh, good, I hope that his brain is healthy, or were you like, man, he's not in, we need him?
No. As a sports medicine, and I guess you just asked a fan versus.
Yeah.
As a fan, your knee jerk is, man, I hope we can get this done without him, right?
Yeah.
Because he's got history. We know what he can do, and we know, that he's a gamer. So you want that as a fan, but then you got to take a step back and go, what's he's got to go home to his family. He's got a future that's,
it's also not about that Sunday. It's about the next Sunday or the playoffs or next year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think fans get a little short-sighted with things.
Right.
And then, there's also the other side of the coin where you are allowed to play from whether it's concussion or whether it's another injury. Like, for example, last week we talked about Derek Carr and his AC joint.
Yes.
So he had hurt his AC joint. You kind of broke that down to me and explained that very well on like how you would brace it and support it and maybe play. And all reports were that he wasn't going to play this week,
Right.
and he did. And so, being somebody who's had that injury before for athletes, walk me through like what a week might be like for somebody who on a Sunday hurt their shoulder and then is trying to play obviously the following Sunday, and then in fact does play that following Sunday? You think it's game day injection? You think it's bracing? You think it's, preventative stuff? Is it all the above? What is your thought on that?
I think first thing we had to do is get the inflammation down, right? That's what you got to get, because the inflammation, like we talked about last time, leads to that instability and loss of function. That's a joint we need to be more stable, right? So after the injury, so we got to drop the inflammation. That's key, and then we got to see how. I'm believing that they let him rest an extra day or so, right? Mm-hmm. Definitely no contact or anything.
Probably wasn't throwing.
Probably not lifting. Maybe just going through some footwork drills, keeping his body going on the bike, doing everything else but using that shoulder, right? Keeping his neck.
A lot of film.
Yep, a lot of film. A lot of soft tissue, working the neck, like we said. Keep working all the tissues around it, getting the inflammation down, getting the pain and tightness down, and then testing it, Wednesday, Thursday, seeing how his body's holding up with more movement and mobility. And then they're testing out different things, in my opinion, probably taping it up, bracing it, seeing what they could or could not do. Yep.
Yeah.
And, how minimal can we get with the bracing and the taping and still perform at that higher level. And because it's really easy, you could just strap it up, do everything to it.
No movement, and then affects the throws.
There. So they'll probably put it to the most protection and then keep working back, peeling back the layers until he says, okay, that gives me the relief I need, plus, and then the trainers and the medical staff are happy and feeling, okay, there's a good compromise because we feel that that's going to be protected enough, and you're saying it doesn't hurt enough. Okay.
You can perform.
You can perform.
Yeah. And sometimes it's a limited performance, right? So as a quarterback, you might say, well, I know I can't make these 3 or 4 throws, or maybe I can't throw over 50 yards today, so let's change the game plan for the day. Or if you're a wide receiver and you have a hip issue or an ankle issue, you might have sharper cuts to one side and not the other. So your team knows that. Maybe you line up more on one side, or maybe you line up on the opposite side, kind of knowing like the ball's not coming to me, I can throttle it down a little bit.
Right.
That's interesting.
And leading into the game, and if they make that decision, probably the conversation is going something like this: hey, we're going to okay that you can play because we know you want to play and you're going to play through pain, and we feel that it's strong and stable enough to where you are not going to do further damage. Now, you have to understand this. If you take a hit or get thrown to the ground and this happens, you could take it from where if we rested it this week and have one more week and you're going to be solid for next week, you could be out 6 to 8 weeks dealing with this if you get it. So
you do tell an athlete that, like, hey, we're letting you out there, but be smart about it.
I think they have that conversation. I think they're letting coach know too, like, hey, we have to make an educated decision on this. Is everybody on board? You know what your risks are.
Because
if we just tell the player, like, hey, you're fine, you're good to go out there, then something happens, and they're like, well, they didn't tell me this could happen. And they're like, well, you should have known. They're all, no, I'm the player, you're the doctor.
Yeah.
Your job is to tell me and to protect me.
Yep.
So there is that thought process where we as medical professionals also have to go through that little checklist and say, we got to cover our own butts too, and make sure there's a paper trail that, hey, we explain the risks and benefits, and that it's not like a full legal document, it's more talking, because when you're in the training room, it's just like you're in the locker room.
Sure.
You're just talking like a couple buddies, and it's not so cold and
you spend 9 months of the year with somebody, all hours.
The athletic trainers are 24 hours with these guys by phone or by location, so their bond is pretty good. They're talking like they're friends or family, more like family. So they're going to have that conversation, like, we're looking at each other like, what could happen, right? So that might be the conversation, right? And the player's going to say, yes, that's enough to say, okay, the risks, right? So, and I mean, everybody's been doing this long enough. They're in their 20s. They've been playing for 13, 14, 15 years. Everybody knows what the risks are. So, but still,
I think the main thing that you said was everybody knows, right? The player and the team doc had that conversation, or the head athletic trainer. I didn't know this when I first started, but the head coach and the head athletic trainer have conversations all the time, which sounds silly as I say this out loud now. But when I first started, I was like, man, that's a difficult position to be in if you're the head athletic trainer and you got to go to the head coach and say, hey, your star, whoever, can't go in my opinion. And the coach is like, well, you didn't do your job all week long. You didn't.
Brutal.
I would internalize that and be like, well, I didn't do good enough, or I didn't do, all that I could to get this guy on the field in time, when really it could just be a nature thing where it's like, well, that's not a 7-day return,
And the coach doesn't have any clue on
doesn't
that.
have any clue. And he's not upset at you. Maybe at the moment he is, but there's a lot of things going on, I'm sure, for a head coach. And I just remember thinking, after overhearing some stuff, going like, that is not easy. Like, that is not easy, to be that person.
Right.
But with great, what's the saying about something, great responsibility, or with great power comes great responsibility, right? And so anyone who's in that position, I greatly respect. That's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah, altogether.
Yeah. I can't believe I didn't mention this, and this is the last time I bring up Raider Chargers, but it's important to state. Did you know that Khalil Mack had 6 sacks yesterday against your team?
No.
6. I didn't think that you knew that, and I wanted to tell you.
That's a lot. That's a career day.
Bro, he didn't have any sacks going into this game, and he had 6 sacks against the Raiders, and now he's tied for first place in all the NFL.
Well, I'm glad we could help out with that.
Man, I was rooting for 7.
Happy
Derek
birthday.
Thomas had 7.
Yeah,
that was his. That's the NFL record.
Oh, man.
So I was watching him tee off and just being like, just get one more.
Man.
I met him during the training camp this year, and his hands are like bear paws. He's just
amazing,
a giant
human being.
just a big dude, but was super pleasant, and I was happy to see him coming from, where he had so much success with the Bears. I'm glad to see him have a great day, and we needed it. We wouldn't have won without his effort. There was that was just a tremendous game. One that I think they'll mention when he goes to the Hall of Fame. They'll be like, remember that one game, 6 sacks.
You don't hear that.
No,
that's good for him.
It's amazing.
It's exciting.
It's amazing. Yeah. Like I said, I didn't want to bring it up to rub it in, but more bring it up because that's an amazing athletic feat.
Cool.
It's crazy.
Maybe down the road, a couple of years, we could have him on to talk about that.
It'd be nice.
It'd be fun to hear.
It'd be nice. Yeah.
What it was all about.
Going back a second, we were talking about AC joints with Derek Carr and him playing. There was another injury, again in the Raiders game, to Devontae Adams, your best wide receiver, I would say, right? One of the best in the league. And I want to describe it to you. He went for a pass, and the pass was behind him. He was kind of running like a drag route or a crossing route right to left, and the ball was behind him. He kind of went back around to catch it, got his hands on it, and then got immediately tackled. But because he was reaching behind him, his right shoulder was kind of rotated, and when he got tackled, he landed right on his right shoulder, driven into the ground, body weight on top. Looked like a classic AC joint. He rolled over, held his elbow, and he was down. Went to the locker room, and I immediately was like, damn, if that thing's fractured, I mean, he's out for a while. And I started thinking, it's week 4, 8 weeks, maybe he could come back for the playoffs. And I'm like, Raiders aren't making the playoffs. Like, what? No, but in all seriousness, I was like, man, that's terrible, because that's just like a bad fall. It's just a freak thing, right? And like, you get a full-grown man landing on you, anybody's AC joint is going to go, even with shoulder pads. But then he came back in the game. Not only did he come back, but he had several receptions and kept the Raiders in the game. And so in contrast to David Carr, who went out, obviously it was not that serious, not broken. Do you think they took imaging in the back right away? I assume it was sprained. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure typically they'll take an x-ray right away, take a look at it. But there's some good orthopedic tests that we do, as you know, that could tell pretty quick how bad it is.
With a high certainty?
Yeah. Even if the player's like sucking it up, those orthopedic tests are designed to find those things regardless of, malingering or trying to
elicit that pain.
Yeah. So with pretty good certainty, they can test that out to determine if they need to take imaging. If there's any question, any kind of swelling or deformity that look like, then they're going to do the imaging. But If they go in there and it would just surprise them and hurt at that time, then they get in there, take his pads off, and reach in there, move it around, palpate it, and there's really no indication that there's anything wrong. No numbness, no tingling, no circulation issues. They test it out. They put compression on it. He's feeling fine, just sore, bruise feel. Then they're sending him back in. So
injection.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so. They don't like to do that. I mean, not for that joint. Not necessarily. Yeah, I don't think they will.
Yeah, with certain things, you're hitting it up with a Toradol injection or something.
And typically before the games, and you really try.
What would you use during the game, would you say? Or what have you seen used during the game for an in-game injury? It's halftime, you get hurt second quarter.
To be honest, I don't see that very often.
Is that right?
I don't. Yeah, because if they need something like that, then they probably shouldn't be playing.
Sure.
If it, to get the inflammation down, or like a cortisone or something to get the inflammation down.
So that's Hollywood. That's like rocking the ballers. That's okay.
Yeah. So unless it's Super Bowl, unless it's last playoff.
Well, what about like Patrick Mahomes last year in the playoffs
with his ankle?
With his ankle.
Yeah.
Went to the locker room, got film.
Yeah, that they're.
If there's something available, you're telling me they're not hitting them up.
That I think they are. Yeah. That's a little different joint too, because they're gonna tape that up. They're gonna lock that up. And remember how immobile he was?
Yeah.
Totally
you're right.
Changed his game. I mean, he was still able to do what he did, but
no, location matters. You're 100% right about that.
Yeah. So, but the original question was that AC or shoulder type thing where you can't lock it up as much. So.
Yeah, no, I was impressed, man. He with the AC, he was still catching and not like letting the ball get into, not to get into nuances of catching, but like he wasn't letting it get into his body. Yeah. He was getting his hands out, which with an AC sprain, even that's hard to do. It's hard to get your hands above your shoulders, get your elbows up. I'm sure it didn't feel good.
Yeah. Did they mention AC at all, or we just assumed? Because he could have had a stinger too. And that calms down, relatively quick.
You know what?
I don't know.
That's a great question. I thought they said it was AC, but I think that was just the booth being like, oh, it looks like it could.
Because you fall on it. That looks like
I don't know if it was like a medically reported thing back in the game. He just came back. So you're right. Maybe it was a stinger that
made him nervous, scared.
Sure.
Those stingers scare you.
Yeah.
You don't know, especially if it takes a few minutes for the numbness tingling to go down. You got like a dead arm, and you'll hold it.
The presentation
is
the same.
Get that brachial plexus up because you want to take the pressure off that.
Yeah.
Just that quick stretch, So I wonder, because to be doing all that with an AC, if he sprained it all, that'd be weird, right? To hurt that bad, and then unless they did shoot him up.
Well, we'll find out tomorrow. Yeah. It's Monday night. We'll get the NFL report, the team report tomorrow morning, and so we'll see what's on Tuesday and Wednesday's list, and we can bring that up again. But I thought that was interesting. AC joint with Derek Carr, AC joint perhaps, shoulder injury at the very least with Devontae Adams, and both able to return. I thought that was pretty gutty on their part. Speaking of gutty performance, did you see QB1, Justin Herbert?
Yeah. Just a flesh wound, he said. Did you read that?
Yo, you know what I like about that? He said, "'Tis but a scratch, just a flesh wound." You know what that's from?
Monty Python.
Yes, dude. I thought that was only like our generation or something.
That was good.
So I'm impressed that Mr. Herbert's, he's got referencing some good humor.
Yeah, sense of humor.
Yeah, man, that made me laugh.
That was good, but yeah. So I saw it happen. I saw what happened with Crosby's. At first, they're like, it looked like it got caught up in his face mask. But then I read other reports that it didn't.
I thought I read that it got caught in his face and then he got stepped on. Maybe.
Okay, yeah. So
who knows?
Yeah, but not only did he fracture the finger, he also tore off the nail.
So those are both a problem.
Yeah, in themselves, right?
He's making light of it, but I would say even though it's not your throwing hand. You're taking and I don't know if you noticed in the game, he wasn't taking snaps under center because he really couldn't at that time, They'll figure it out between now and next week.
Yeah.
They had 2 different tape jobs. So the first time they taped
series,
it. Tell me about what you saw and have you done that before?
Yeah, so the first series I saw, and It was my dad's birthday last night. We were birthday dinner, and actually,
Happy birthday, Pops.
Thank you. Yeah, it wasn't that game, but I was getting ready to go to. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it wasn't that game. I was watching it before, but I was getting ready, so it was in between things, and I saw it. And it looked like a regular finger,
Just a finger brace.
finger brace. Like if there's ligament damage or something to hold it in place and taped up. And it was his middle finger, so he had that sticking straight out. And I'm like, man, that's just like they say, sticking out like a sore thumb, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, so you're so much more vulnerable to that. Snagging it on something, hitting it on something,
And everyone on the defense sees that.
And they even made a comment on it during the game. They're like, okay, you bet what's happening is that the defense is going after that and swinging at that.
Sure.
That's just part of the game. It's an unwritten thing, but that's, or unsaid thing, but that's, you want to go after that. And it's, so it was, so he got through that first series, taking it, long snapping and handing off. He was doing a lot of handoffs. I think they were still trying to figure out what he could and couldn't do. And he was kind of testing it out. Obviously, he can get it, drop back, but still, if you have to, it's one thing to drop back with no pressure on you, right? And to be able to then put it in your throwing hand and make that throw, right? Because you can eliminate that left hand. But as soon as you get pressure and you have to go into the pocket under pressure, you have to get that left hand around the ball to secure it, right?
Sure.
That's where the problem is, so that the defense knows this, so they're coming and trying to engulf him even more, not let him scramble, because if he scrambles, he's still fine.
Sure.
But if they get him to come in, then he's more vulnerable. One, he has to hold it or not hold it, and we get a fumble easier.
There's just a lot of big men swiping at you and trying to get at you, so it's dangerous in the pocket, but a great quarterback, of course, is going to stay in the pocket and get rid of the ball. And there's several times that he got hit moments, split seconds after he released the ball, right? So that happens all the time in the league. That second series, he went from the splint and then had the glove on.
Yeah.
So it seems as though they probably took that splint off, taped it in a different way, and then gloved it.
Yeah, so my thought process, when you first saw this first splint, it was splinted, but typically, and we didn't know what was the problem, because I thought it might have been dislocated, because the way he went down, he held it, and they covered it up, and they
had it with the towel.
So I thought there was some deformity. They didn't want TV, you have 90-degree finger angle,
Sure.
So I thought, but now we found out his nail was off, and that's not pretty either.
Yeah.
But I thought it was dislocated, so you put that on. But typically, you'll buddy tape that, okay? And buddy tape,
The adjacent finger.
Yeah, the adjacent finger. They didn't have that. So I was wondering, that's kind of interesting. Why didn't they do that, Because if you're just locking it up anyways, you can use, at least one of the other fingers.
Yeah, you'd think they'd put it
that.
with the middle finger or the finger adjacent to the middle finger, or the index finger,
They
maybe.
didn't do that at all. So I didn't quite understand that part,
Might have just been how it felt for him.
Yeah.
I'm sure they tried it, and he's like, I don't like the way this feels.
You're probably right, because he needed a little more tactile with securing that. And then, so my thought was, when they put the glove on, that they left the splint on and probably cut the glove a little to cover over it, to just give a little more just protection from side to side, to enclose it a little more. So I figured it was still.
I'm going to try to find out this week if I can.
Yeah.
Ask somebody who would know, who would have eyes on it. But I mean, as a QB, obviously it's not his throwing hand, his right arm. It's his left hand. However, it probably would have been better if it was his pinky versus his middle finger, just in even receiving snaps. And, even when you throw even if you're right-handed, a lot of times your left arm goes out as you throw. And so then you're vulnerable to getting smacked. And again, to bring up Khalil Mack, he had 6 sacks, and I think 3 of them were forced fumbles. So he was going around and swiping and knocking the ball out. And, if that happens, that's – so glad it's not his throwing hand.
Yes.
That would have been a huge disaster. He can play with this injury most likely.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously he did, and through a week of treatment, it'll improve, and they'll figure out better ways than in the heat of the battle of the game.
All right.
You think it's going to affect him moving forward?
Yeah, I definitely. He was fired up. Did you see? I loved watching him play. He was fired up with that. Like so.
He's a competitor, man. He's a dog. That guy is I'm so proud to have him as a quarterback for our team.
No, he's good. He's going to lead him. He's got big things. He's already proven himself, but he just needs to get those breaks and.
Yeah.
But it's better, as we know, that he broke it versus a dislocation. So
Sure.
kind of a twofold thing, though. Good thing he
Now,
broke.
why is that though? I said sure, but what? Explain
so
that.
as we know, so typically, we know bone will heal faster than soft tissue will. So it's going to be a faster process if he just broke it than if he had soft tissue damage as well. So,
right.
So from a healing standpoint, because within the first 10 days, the bone's already kind of forming, and then a couple more weeks, it's going to be, more secure. Whereas the soft tissue is going to be definitely 6 to 8 week, recovery. So,
and you can accelerate sometimes bone healing.
Yep.
We can talk about it another time, but I just saw a little case study that came out actually about a clavicle fracture using the ARP wave and not using the ARP wave, and it was dramatically quicker with the ARP wave. And so there are ways to kind of accelerate that.
Yeah.
Different ways, not just with the ARP wave. There's other ways to do it.
So the bummer part of his injury, we just talked about, good thing there was no soft tissue, but there was some soft tissue ripped off that nail. Now, I don't know what extent, if it totally ripped off or whatnot, but...
Have you had that before?
So I don't think I ever had a nail. So I've never had it completely tear off. Because that
sounds painful as heck, bro.
Well, yeah. And yeah.
I mean, you stub your toe, it feels terrible.
Yeah.
I've definitely come across a few patients who've ripped off the whole nail bed or ripped most of it off, and it's just barely there. And you're like, do you take the rest of it off? Do you try to tape it down and hope it,
Well, here's the problem with that. So the
blood
nail,
clots.
Exactly. Well, so the nail, it's like, why do we even have these nails, right? Well, if without that nail kind of secures the tips. Okay, so it's like having a board there to make it more firm. Okay, so we can actually tactilely pick up things. Pull things out, with a
you don't
fine
have Jello
motor.
fingers,
right? Jello fingers. So without those nails, they would be very, like Jello gummy. So they do play a role, right? So that's why if he lost it, if there's tissue damage all the way down to the base of it, or that little half moon, that white half moon thing, that's what they call lunula. Well, not they. It's called a lunula. Basically, that's where the nail matrix that actually
grows.
Causes the nail to grow, because nails and hair are just protein and fat, so they don't have any living tissue in them. So what's growing is not what we see is growing. It's growing from that little white area back there. That's the matrix. So if you rip off a nail and do damage to that, the nail does not grow back. It doesn't grow back.
Oh, man.
So you're screwed. So right when that happens, that's why it's like, well, if you tear off part of it, do they want to go off and tear the other part? It's not just as easy as ripping the rest of it off.
You could really do permanent damage.
Right? And for a quarterback, you'd be like, well, it's not that big a deal. But again, if it's a tactile thing. You got to have that tactile, even if it's not on your throwing hand.
Dude, you want all the sensation that you can get.
Right. So in that area too, very sensitive. A lot of nerve endings at the bottom of the or at the toes and the fingertips. But also, it's a huge. So it protects us from getting infections too, the nails. So if we're not having that, you're more susceptible to infections. And if you're
think of all the things you do with your hands, right?
Right.
So you have an open wound. And now you're cutting up food, you're in dirt, you're playing football, you're dealing with sweaty people, you're wiping your ass, all these things you can get.
Environment. So that over this next, they got to really make sure not only does it heal, but they got to take care of that it's clean, sterile, and really watching it. So
it's crazy how sometimes the smallest of things, can.
That was my point to that. It's like people wouldn't even think, but there's a lot that's going to go into that thought process of that nail.
I just remembered, sometimes you have like memories that jump up. This was probably 10 years ago. There was a wide receiver who had a literal hangnail that got infected. And it's like, it's just a hangnail. Just clip it off with a fingernail clipper, or, don't pull it off. But I think maybe he pulled it off or whatever it was, and it got infected. And then his fingertip swelled up. He's a wide receiver. And it was like palpable and felt hard. And man, it was like, he was like, bro, my finger freaking hurts, and he was literally, it was his index finger. So he was trying to like modify how he caught the ball. I don't think he had any drops that week, but I remember being like, damn, like no one's going to know you got a glove on, but if you drop a ball, people are going to be like, you bum, you know? So yeah, just something that small can affect you. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. What are you drinking there? Venti coffee?
Yep, Venti coffee. Yeah.
I wanted to bring that up.
That's a good segue.
Yeah. So Dan Campbell, the coach of the Detroit Lions, he has a lot of awesome quotes. Yeah. I don't know if they're awesome for everybody, but he's said some pretty, remarkable things that get repeated. Like we're gonna chop him off at the kneecaps But some reporter asked him what is his coffee intake or what's his routine. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I did. Like you were just saying, he's got some pretty sensational quotes that are kind of fun to follow and watch. So definitely heard that one too.
So I'm not a coffee drinker. I might have, this is water today. I might, lately get like a small cha or something like that. But he drinks 2 venti coffees. And I'm such a coffee rookie. I'll go through and even say like I want a small, a medium, a large versus a tall or, rooked out. Yeah. But 2 venti coffees with 2 espresso shots each. Yeah. And that's not through the day. I thought that was through the day. And I'm like, that's savage. Yeah. 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. No, that's to start. He has 2 double fisting ventis with 2 espresso shots. What is your thought on that? That's crazy.
So I want to know how that process all started. Like,
totally.
It's like anything else. You don't just start and go, okay, I'm going to do this. So like there's this process that is over the year or months, whatever.
Career.
He had to keep. So what happens next year? Is he up to 3, Like it's crazy, but that's a crazy amount. I think we looked it up. What was it? Was like 1,100 or depending on what you read.
Yeah, some said 820 milligrams of coffee. Yeah. Some said 1,100 milligrams of coffee or caffeine, I should say.
Caffeine. That's a ridiculous amount because the average cup is what 90.
They say 95.
95, milligrams of caffeine.
A Red Bull's like 100 or 111 specifically. A 5-hour energy I looked up was the extra 5-hour energy, extra long, whatever they call it, was 250 milligrams. So he's putting down, let's estimate 1,000 milligrams. Bro.
It's that. Okay. So when you mentioned the 5-hour. So I used to go up to the Staples Center. Mm-hmm. We would have nighttime games and I would be there before the game and all the way after the game and then have to drive home.
So you're not leaving till midnight.
Midnight. Right. Yeah. So I would do one of those 5-hour and I would, and that would keep me up, and I'd get home, and I'd still be amped for a couple hours. And so, I can't imagine.
I believe it.
Doing this, like it's
definitely a ramp up in tolerance. You just don't start that way. There was a reporter though who said that he tried the Dan Campbell coffee test, and he didn't fare very well. He was tweeting, and he said he shared his Google search, and it was like, "Can you die from a caffeine overdose? How do you like detox off caffeine, or how do you undo the damage that you did?" Sounds terrible.
Well, it's not good. I mean, caffeine,
not good for your heart.
No, not good for your heart, and not good for your brain. I mean, there's studies like everything, like chocolate, alcohol. Everybody can find something good in something, but overall, caffeine. That's why when you get off caffeine, you feel terrible. When you get off, everybody that's ever drinking coffee for a long time and then try to stop for a day or two, they have terrible headaches and everything. And the reason why is because your blood vessels go back to normal, and you have this influx of blood flow to your brain back to a normal level, and your body can't perceive, and so you get
the coffee pressure. Causes vasoconstriction.
So all these people go through the day with
restricted blood flow,
and they think, but it also allows them to have a little more energy. And the way it has more energy is because it blocks that part of your body that says you're tired, so that it doesn't really give you the energy. It just stops that sensation going to your brain.
So interesting.
Yeah, so that's how caffeine works. So you're constricted blood vessels all the time. So that's not good for health. If you want to be a high performer, you should not be drinking caffeine at that level. Now, if you have like 1 6-8 cup or 8-ounce cup, in the morning or whatever, that's going to restrict you a little. You get the benefit of the alertness. There's a lot of other good health benefits. But if you're drinking to that level, you're not at your peak performance. Even if you feel amped, you're not At
least setting yourself up for dehydration post athletic activity.
Yeah.
Well, that, maybe somebody can look it up, but what does a prime drink have in caffeine? Because I see so many kids drinking that. And at first I thought it was just like, I don't want to sound, naive, but I thought it was a little more like, not necessarily fruit juice, but I didn't realize it was highly caffeinated.
Yeah.
I thought it was
200 milligrams.
So 200 milligrams for a kid who's 12 years
It's
old.
not good.
I mean, I see all these videos. This is my first prime drink.
Yeah.
And like, good on the person who's branding it and good for their company.
Well,
but it's like,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's like,
Was it Jake Paul's?
See, I didn't say it because I don't know which one of the Pauls. So Logan Paul.
Yeah. Is there even a
They're
Jake?
famous, but not famous
Is there
enough
even
for
a
me to
Jake?
know the difference between the two of them.
There's a Jake. Yeah, it's Logan. Yeah. So but
Yeah, it's interesting because if I had kids, I definitely would be like, you are not having that as like your refreshment drink.
yeah, and it's not that well. Anyways, we won't go into that, but that's why Kobe designed
Body
armor for that reason, for his kids. So it was developed with kids in mind, because even Gatorade, or I shouldn't label anything,
yeah.
But it's got
The other sports drink.
It's got the coloring. It's got the so you got the dyes, you got the added sugars, you got all this other stuff. Even when they remove it, it's still got a sweetener. It's still got a lot of dyes. The whole point of body armor is that they eliminated any coloring you see there is just coming from the fruit juice that they use, and they use coconut water base, so that you get high potassium, which is awesome, and just a little sodium. Our diets are so high in sodium already, and then all these drinks that you drink have more sodium,
And you drink a couple of them.
Yeah,
not like a little bit.
Yeah, so that's why I really like, and they don't add any sugar. The sweetener's just from the fruit, no coloring. Anyway, so
Maybe we could do like a sports drink podcast,
I'd
because
love to do that.
I'm interested personally on, one, how body armor was developed, the genesis of it you've shared with me, but I wouldn't mind having just for my own personal sake, a more full in-depth discussion, but also for our audience, a little comparison. Cause I've had, in fact, one of my athletes has younger kids, and you grow up drinking Gatorade. That was kind of our generation. And then you get to the league, and depending on what league you play for, you might be sponsored by Powerade or Gatorade or whoever.
Yep.
And that's what you typically drink. But I had this athlete who has kids ask me, is this good for my kid? Because he's wanting to drink what I drink, and he wants that blue bottle. He wants that orange bottle. And he was like, should I be giving him this? And I'm like, a little bit, anything's okay, probably, especially after Saturday soccer or something like that. But I wouldn't be giving him a 32-ounce thing of Gatorade after playing 4-year-old soccer. Like, little man doesn't need that. Plus, it's all that sugar. Then you're going to wonder why he's, bouncing off the wall and trying to tackle you, But that was the thing, though, when we were younger. It's like, I felt like if I had an orange Gatorade before my games, I was like a little bit of an edge,
Yep.
So that was probably mostly psychological then, huh?
Yeah. No. Yeah. For you, 100%.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I thought that stuff actually made a difference. I mean, it does for hydration, but when you're younger, you kind of are like, this is my secret juice right here.
I remember back in the 80s when Gatorade, it was early on. I forget when it came out, but it was really only the yellow color. Remember the yellow Gatorade?
I didn't like that. I was the orange kid.
Yeah, well, this was before. My dad used to, was part of a racquetball club, and I would go, and while he was playing racquetball, I would
pickleball of the 80s.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everybody did racquetball. So that's funny. That's a good point. That's a different generation.
Yeah.
Like pickleballs are. Yeah. So, but I remember sitting at they had this it was like a sports bar in the racquetball club, but it was all sports drinks, protein shakes, all that kind of stuff.
Smoothies, whatever.
Yeah. Yep, smoothies, and but Gatorade, and it would come in this white cup, like a paper cup, with ice and this yellow drink, and I would just sip on that, not even playing. You know, I was 6, 7, 8, whatever.
You're athlete ready to be.
Oh yeah. But I remember just the taste of it. Brings back a lot of good memories.
Sure.
Like, that was Gatorade. Yeah. So you mentioned the
man. Yeah. There's listen. If I've had a few too many cocktails on a given night, I'm not a big drinker, but if I do, sometimes that orange Gatorade just hits the next day.
The right thing for you.
Yeah. It's funny. Let me think of what else went on this weekend, man. Anything catch your mind that I didn't bring up from the weekend's games or injury-wise?
We talked about her. Well, it's kind of funny. This morning, we've talked about my daughter being in Tennessee, and she texted me early this morning. I think it was 5:30 our time. She's like, "Are you having the podcast today?" And I said, "Yeah, why? I can always reschedule if needed. What do you need?"
Yeah,
and she's
yeah.
all, No. There's a couple topics I think you should talk about."
Oh, that's
I'm
beautiful.
Like, yeah, so
Nice.
I'm like, right on. So a
Yeah.
little proud dad moment, and
Sure.
I love talking, but I love that things are on her radar,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So she the first one thing she touched upon was, "Oh, you got to talk about Kelce and Taylor Swift." And I'm
Wait,
like,
who?
Yeah. Well, there's this guy named Travis Kelce. Have you heard
Oh,
of him?
tight end, I think maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I forget what team he plays for,
Sure.
but there's this singer, which we all know who she is, right?
No.
You've never heard of Taylor Swift? Swiftie.
Is she
you know
fast?
Swiftie? Yeah. So, yeah.
She was fast to get on.
She was fast to
Yeah,
jump
never
on
mind, I
the,
won't.
yeah. So
Anyways.
yeah. So apparently this Taylor Swift girl, I don't know, she's showing up at this tight end, game, and it's kind of this big.
No, it's taking the
deal.
whole country by
Yeah,
storm, right?
Right, exactly. So anyway, she wanted me to talk about that, and
Well, what are your
the whole
thoughts in
thing.
short?
So, man, it's so funny how many people want to talk about that, about how who was more popular first, whatever, and it's just like, who cares? Like, this
Sure.
isn't the place. Like, one, personally, because we know a lot of these people, and the celebrity part is like, let them do whatever they want to do. Who cares?
Right.
It's just funny that people want to jump on board with it and start making things out of it. And like, we had my mom had an awesome dinner at their house last night for my dad's birthday, and we were all there and we were talking about it, and we were just talking about how it's all about Taylor Swift and anything. It was just funny.
It definitely seems like it's a her phenomenon.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
if he was dating another celebrity
Right.
or another singer, maybe not, but her fan base is very large. It's like a Beyonce fan
yeah.
base, very passionate, very loyal. And according to my female demographic patients who came in this week, they're happy that she's not with some frail little, sensitive type of actor guy or something. He's finally with like an athlete, or she's finally with like a big athlete and like a macho guy.
Yeah.
But I just think it's funny that for this particular celebrity couple, I mean, we've had them before, right? Whether it was like Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, or actually you could say Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston, or Brad Pitt and somebody, multiple
right,
people.
exactly. Okay.
But yeah, I think it's definitely her fan base and her popularity. She's crushing it. She's a billionaire, so popular, been around for decades now. But do you care about who celebrities date, or what do you think about more specifically how it seems to have just caught fire in all, not the sporting world, not the pop culture world, but like it's on the Today Show.
Yeah,
like
everybody's talking about it.
my parents are talking about it. It's like like you don't.
It's the
What?
weirdest
Yeah,
thing. That's
it's
what I'm
reaching
saying.
different.
And I was trying to think, when else have we seen this like this? And I don't know. I don't know what it is about it, but people are loving talking about it. And and it's just, it's taken away from the game a little, right? I
Yes.
mean, it'd be one thing to add to the game, but they're just cutting to her all the time, like every little thing. I mean, and after the first game she was at,
That was cute. That was cute. I thought the first time was cute.
That's fine. She was all excited, and he was staring off at her before the game. It was a little puppy love type thing. It was cool, right? But then the next morning we're driving to work, and you hear on the radio that, Heinz Ketchup, decided to make a new condiment based on what she was eating at the game.
Wow.
She mixed ketchup and ranch,
Man.
and they came up with a new condiment,
Bro.
using her,
She is a mover.
So yeah, exactly. So my point, like a lot of people are talking about, is like, why wouldn't the NFL capitalize? Why wouldn't these people capitalize on it? It's a business. So to them, so I'm saying, well, they're taking advantage of the situation and making money when they can make money.
Well, let me say this then. Is Taylor Swift bigger than the NFL? Because they changed their bio to Taylor Swift was here last week, and then they were like, Taylor Swift was here again. That's on their NFL Twitter bio or on their page.
Well,
and I mean, look, State Farm had Jake from State Farm, over there in Philly, and
awesome.
From State Farm's perspective, you don't have to make a commercial. You can just be next to the Kelce's mom, and it's no different than product placement in movies.
Right.
You have M&Ms laying there on the counter. Now you have Jake from State Farm next to Mrs. Kelce.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And
so it's about the money and how the money's going to be.
But it's kind of sick to me a little bit, right? It's so much capitalist. It's so capitalistic. It's like
that's the problem.
A little bit of a turnoff. Like I like
agree.
you, Jake from State Farms. I like your Mahomey commercials. Like those are clever. I like Andy Reid being like, "Give me a little nuggie." Like that's all funny. But
keep it like it's taken away from the game.
That's what I'm saying.
So I understand why it's happening. That's what I keep saying to people. Like I understand, like because you got these suits up there. Seeing that NFL ratings are dropping, NFL things are dropping. How can we? Oh, and then this just came out. Let's capitalize on this because it's going to drop again, right? So they're going to take advantage from a money standpoint, but it takes away from the game. I mean, they're playing, shake it off, and stuff like this when he gets hit. You know? Like,
oh, that's hilarious. I didn't know that was happening.
Yeah, so
I kind of am a fan of that. I think that's funny.
So I don't know if the NFL is playing it or whatever.
In fact, if I was the opposing team on the opposing field and he got licked, I'd probably play that to tease him or something,
Yeah. So it's gonna run its course. But now I was even looking up stuff today after my daughter told me that, and now it's like, oh, they didn't leave the stadium together, and so it's like all these tabloids. Oh, they didn't have dinner together. What's going on? It's like really, it's only
gossip
been
time.
8 days. It's like it's just too much. It's like
all the speculation and gossip. I guess that's just good.
Yeah.
Good conversation for whoever's interested in either party. But some of the facts of the episode, or the episode, there I go, the football game, they had 17 cutaways to her, which that might be like a half a dozen too many perhaps. But they had 2 commercials for Taylor Swift's movie where she documented her whole concert, which, again, that's a genius business move. Kudos to you. Like, hats off. There were 3 Travis Kelce commercials, 2 Patrick Mahomes commercials, 1 Andy Reid commercial. So they're Super Bowl champions. They're all over TV. But I swear if it wasn't, a cutaway to Taylor Swift or an ad about her movie or something that involved one of the Chiefs players, whether it was Kelce or Mahomes or Andy Reid, then it was like a football gambling commercial or a pharmaceutical drug commercial. And that was it. It was like Swift, Kelce, drug commercials, gambling commercials. And also they sprinkled the game in too,
Yeah. So
I don't know what's going to happen this week. I don't know who the Chiefs play. They also escaped with a victory against the Jets. They really kind of got lucky. I'll say it.
Man, that penalty at the end.
Yes.
Did you see that penalty? Were you watching the game? Or
I was watching the game. Yeah.
I don't think it was a hold because I didn't see him get turned.
Oh,
around.
you didn't?
I didn't think it was a hold. You did?
Wow, that comes from an offensive lineman.
100%.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, you didn't think it was a hold, dude. I counted I ate like a half a sandwich in the time that guy let him go.
Man.
Listen, it could have easily been called
in slow mo, but in real time. It was boom, boom. It was like...
that's the thing is football is subjective a little bit. I hate the slow-mo too, especially on pass interferences. But if you were to ask me in a quick second, I didn't see it when it happened. I didn't catch the hold. On the replay, then I was like, oh, that's a holding. But that's also that tells you a little bit about, well, maybe my eyes weren't there. But if it's not clear in real time, then, that means something to me typically. And... that's football. I mean, there's a half a dozen of those calls. There's a PI call. There was the holding on the Mahomes run.
Yeah. It's not just one play.
It's not one play. Their quarterback dropped the snap with the turnover. They could have beat him, and so I think that's a valiant effort by the Jets, who are defensively heavy as far as their strong point, without their quarterback. And to play the world champions all the way to the end.
Yeah, I think Zach Wilson played a great game.
I think he played a great game,
for everything he's having to deal with, and being fresh, young, and thrown into it mentally.
I mean, he has everything to gain and nothing to lose is how I would look at it if I was him. But yeah, it was a great game as far as it went down to the end. And then I have a few Chiefs fan patients, and they were super happy. One of them in particular. And I said, it wasn't really, you guys didn't really dominate. You guys could have really lost that game to a wounded Jets team and been, not 3-1, but been 2-2, tied with the Chargers. And so anyways, we were having some back and forth about it. And I actually defeated my own argument and said, well, when you're a good team, it doesn't matter how you win. Sometimes you just find ways to win, right? And they find ways to win. You could say Philly did the same thing. Philly hasn't played great. in the last 4 games, but they're 4-0 if I recall, and they've found ways to win.
Yeah.
Conversely, there's some teams that seem to almost find ways to lose. They can't quite hold on.
Speaking of your team.
Yeah, well, I didn't specify, Dustin, who that could be. That could be it could be the Arizona Cardinals for all you know.
Nope.
Not this week, buddy. We won. So,
you guys pulled it off. I still don't know.
Didn't we make a side bet about that or something? I think we got to roll the tape back.
I think we did.
Yeah.
Damn.
It was like a burrito or something.
Pretty sure it was a stick of gum.
It was a hat.
Yeah.
Something important.
We'll figure it out. But on that, Mahomes did not look good. He looked like he was sick or something.
Did he?
Beginning, yeah. He threw the 2 interceptions. When's the last time you saw him throw a terrible? And even that one, he's like, my bad. He even said, like, throw the fucking ball.
Yeah.
You could read his lips, and it's like he's just, into triple coverage. He just like lobbed it up. It was weird.
I heard it was pressure. He wanted to look good in front of Taylor.
Yeah,
and that was.
I think they all went out the night before. We all know that.
It is. It's going to be a good album that comes out if they break up, and if she like messes with him. Not if she messes with him, but if this very public relationship goes sideways before the end of the year, especially around the playoffs, and they flop, then there's going to be Chief Kingdom who's like, she's the worst,
She's a girl boss. She's powerful. Like I would not want. I
literally hats off. Like
she doesn't.
Yeah.
So, but some guy on TikTok made a parody song about their relationship already, and then breaking up. It's pretty funny.
Oh, really? I didn't hear that. You'll have to send it to me.
Perspective, yeah.
It's interesting. People's takes, like guys who were like, upset that their wives are. Saying Taylor Swift is more popular than Travis Kelce, and also, that is true actually. So, he came up on almost 700 or 800,000 followers. In a world where followers matter, I guess that means advertising, or it means monetization. Their podcast has grown. So, it grew exponentially through the last year, what a great story. Yeah. Brothers in the Super Bowl. So that whole narrative is just going to naturally grow.
On that, I like how his brother, Jason, he kind of threw him under the bus with the whole.
Oh, did he? What did he say?
So that's how it all kind of broke. Or
he said something first?
He said something after that first game she was at. His comment to him on the next podcast was, how does it feel that Taylor Swift finally put you on the map?
Oh, got you. Okay. So then that's what blew it up.
And then it's like, that whole controversy. And so, yeah.
Well, there'll be more to come, I'm sure, this season. I wish them well. I wish happiness for all people and success for all people. I don't think somebody else's happiness detracts from yours, or someone else's success detracts from yours. At least that's how I feel. I know you feel that way too. So I just thought it was funny. I was like, gosh. Yeah. They're really like hamming this up,
how much leg or how much steam it's gotten.
No, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, but I did want to talk about one other thing besides that my daughter brought up.
Sure.
The University of Tennessee wide receiver. I don't know if you saw this injury.
I didn't. What happened to him?
Brew McCoy.
Okay.
Caught a pass and looked like just a routine tackle, but the way his leg got caught under and the defender kind of fell on him quickly, he broke and dislocated his ankle.
Wide receiver, you said?
Wide receiver, yeah. So it was his right ankle kind of rolled up, and you saw right when it happened, the defender got right up. Good tackle, normal routine is just bam, bam like that. But in slow motion, again, you see how it gets caught up and twisted and then landed on.
Oh, man.
And, he lays there, and you see his foot just completely off to the side. And
do you know what year he is?
I don't. No,
man. Hopefully he's young enough that's not his last.
Yep. So they had surgery. He had surgery Sunday, and already in the starting of the healing process.
Yeah.
I was part of a medical staff that we had a guy have that happen with the arena football, and I remember the play was down. He was a big linebacker or running back. In the arena, you go both ways. Yep. It's Ironman football, and he was a big linebacker or running back, and had a little stint for like preseason type ball in the NFL. Did pretty, so they're all NFL type caliber. This guy's a big dude, but anyways, play was down, end zone, you look over and he's on the 50-yard line on his back with his legs straight up and his foot's pointing the opposite direction.
No.
And his foot, like 14, 15-inch foot, it was twisted and facing the other way, and he was just excruciating pain. But yeah, worst ankle injury. We've talked a lot about ankle, ankle, sprain strains, high ankle sprain strains, tib fib issues. This is the worst. It's bad to break it. It's bad but to break it and dislocate. The way it happens is typically when you break both lower leg long bones, the tibia and the fibula at the malleolus, right? When you break that, then the ligaments tear, then the foot dislocates at the same time.
Yeah.
So not only are you fracturing multiple bones, you're also tearing ligaments and ripping that up. And
it's just held by skin and some tissue.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's a brutal injury.
And nerves and veins and arteries.
Yeah. So really hoping for a speedy recovery because, having surgery, that means plates, pins, screws, and then you got to repair, and then you got to suture those ligaments up. So that's a tough one to come back. I've rehabbed those because you got where the screws, and a lot of times where the screws, if there's the soft tissue's not done well, then the underneath you'll see on the outside where the screws are.
You can actually see it kind of through the tissue.
It actually pulls in, and so it's an indent right where those two screws are. It's multiple screws. It's gnarly.
It's gnarly, yeah.
Yeah, so if the rehab is not done well, because usually they immobilize it and stabilize it so the bones heal.
Sure.
But then you got to go in and do the soft tissue versus just having bone or just doing soft tissue.
It's
a
process.
It's a double whammy, and then a lot of times they have to go back in, pull the hardware out after the bones heal.
And that's a whole healing process.
So he's looking at 6 to 12 months depending on,
well, just imagine trying to walk pain-free after that. Yeah. And then imagine trying to get your body to run. Yeah. And then get it to run because you're one of the fastest guys on the field. That's a lot, man. I'm praying for that kid.
Yeah, I hope. Yeah. It's a tough one because that ankle, you need mobility in that ankle.
Sure.
And their surgery is to make it as stable and locked up as possible. So that's where the emphasis on the rehab is going to be.
The rehab is so important. It's
going to be mobility because we know, remember we talked about it goes mobility, then the knee stability, hip mobility, right? Yep. So if you lose mobility in that first joint, then the mobility has to go somewhere and it's going to be in that knee.
Yep.
So even if he gets to playing well, they better start making sure that knee is very stable.
Sure.
So that's going to be part of the rehab. They're going to be working on a lot of knee stability work, and we're working on a lot of hip mobility work. And then they're also going to work on the shoulders and stuff too, because there's that lower cross and upper cross syndrome too. So
it affects the whole body.
So
you wouldn't think it, but it really does, especially with the fine-tuned athlete. Those things matter and they feel it, you know. That's why I often say, man, I trust you. If you feel something, please speak on it, because I trust that you know it, and something that's nuanced to you, you might just write it off, but that might actually be the first domino of a thought process that leads us to figuring out this puzzle, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point. I had a patient today, and I always tell my patients, you got to let me know what you feel too, because a lot of times I'll tell them, I don't care what you feel. It's not that I don't care what you feel, but I'm more here to work on the function of the area.
Sure.
Because we know if it's not functioning, you're not going to feel well. So I'm not going to just talk about your feelings if we know it's not functioning. We got to get that function back. But after I've worked on your function, if you're still aware of something, you got to let me know. I'd rather listen to your brain. You're the one living in it. So if you're still feeling pressure somewhere or something, let me double check. And then I can't tell you how many times we do find something more that I've scanned area and I adjusted where I thought was needed, but their brain was telling them I need a little more here. I had that happen today. The guy was saying, no, on this side I feel something. I'm like, well, I checked the alignment, and it's not that I missed it or anything. It's just, but let's gap the joint. It's not going to hurt to put a little quick stretch, get the muscles to relax one way or another, and if it needs something, it'll release. But
did it?
Yep, it did, and a little, little, but he
felt it.
Yeah, but he was aware of it, and that's what I'm trying to teach my patients is I want to teach you guys how to be aware of your body, because we're not born with that. I mean, we're born with that, but we lose it as we grow up because we're so trained and to squash what we feel or just ignore it, especially as men, So we're trying to get that back. So it's okay.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's an important point, to be body aware, whether it's internal or external,
Yeah.
even emotional.
Yeah.
I mean, look, how many times have you known that you're a little on edge? And you're like, today I'm a little bit grumpy with things. I got to check myself when I come in the door if there's other life stuff going on, which in the past year, there's been a lot of life stuff. And so when you're dealing with clients, regular patients, professional, you really have to, at least I do, take a breath,
reset,
wipe it off, reset, and like focus. You know, it's not just something that happens. For me, at least, it's a conscious thing where it's like, okay, let's switch gears. I think athletes do that too, actually. I see guys who are madmen on the field and they're the nicest guys, but you know, they got to flip the switch, and it's all about a mindset.
Yeah. Sure.
Well, we covered a lot of stuff today, Dustin.
Yeah.
I think we had a good conversation. The Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift thing I know is going to be an ongoing thing. I hope we don't spend too much time, but I'm curious to see where that goes. I hope the media finds something else to talk about over the course of the season. There'll be another storyline, I'm sure. Anyways, what's your week looking like before we wrap up? Anything exciting?
Last week was the exciting week with the homecoming and getting ready. I had to dress up, wear a tie. I normally don't do that. It's not me, but that was fun. And then my dad's birthday and homecoming pictures and everything. So
nice.
So it seems like this week I get to kind of relax on that and just kind of focus back on work. It's the start of the month, and so
October, baby.
Yeah. It's going to be a good week. We're a good couple weeks. Me and my wife are heading out to visit my daughter in Tennessee, which we don't get to do very often, but they're having their blue gold game, kind of to end their 20-hour NCAA weeks, and it comes down to a tournament for them, and it's kind of fun. So we're gonna do that, tailgate, and then head home.
Man, it's nice to have highlights in the week, right?
Yeah.
Kind of break up the monotony from work. I mean, I'm sure you feel this way too. Sometimes our work it's always really rewarding at the end of the day, but it can also be a little bit taxing or draining if your clients are going through some stuff, or we're commuting a lot and doing a lot of concierge work, or, you know, maybe stressing on a client about their health, which in the last few weeks I've had a few people I've been thinking of outside the office, just what we do, you know. But that does, you know, it's like having an app open on your phone, you know, it's like in the background, and it's just slightly draining, you know. But it's all good. We charge up. What do you got going on? Anything looking forward to or different? You know, just looking forward to the week. Really, it's the bye week for the Chargers. So I usually take the bye week to do some continuing education. I'm usually out of the office. I'm kind of in the office a few days for some high need patients, and so. But I do have more time outside the office this week, so I have a whole list Monday through Friday of life stuff to take care of and important patient stuff to take care of. So my days are full, but just not as much with patients this week. So just enjoying the bye week and to touch base with all our clients, make sure everyone's feeling good. And yeah, man, I just, you know, this year's been a year of work for the both of us, and here we are in Q4. And I'm a big believer in harvest time and seasons for things. And I feel like the first 3 quarters for a lot of people that I know have been challenging or very work heavy. And so I'm hoping Q4 for everyone listening is one of fruition, one of, you know, a harvest time where all the hard work pays off. So that's what I kind of look forward to. I think got October and November, want to work hard for the next 2.5 months. And then, convert on some of these goals we have with the podcast, with patients, with things. So that's it, really.
Yeah, we got some guests coming up, too.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to that.
We have some exciting people coming on. I told you about somebody that we'll talk about who's an ultra marathoner, has a very interesting, unique story. So I'm excited to, you know, chat with him and everybody else we have scheduled. But I know you have a drive back, my friend. I could talk to you for hours, but we're going to wrap it up here. For those of you who listen to us, we appreciate you as always. Hit that download button if you can. That helps our numbers. Tell a friend. That helps our growth and our reach. This is The Second Opinion. We are the Sports Medicine Podcast. We're the Pro Sports Doctors. I'm Dr. Dhokal.
I'm Dr. Glass.
And we'll be back with you in about a week's time. Everybody stay safe. We appreciate you. And good night. Talk to you soon.